guys, it's Mo from Morgenstern, and today we're doing my February wrap-up. So, February for me was a very awkward month. I have to say I was very ill in February, so I ended up reading a total of 10 books, along with the audiobooks for some of them. I typically don't read 10 books a month. I think this is the first month in a whole year that I've read this many books, but it was a very weird month. For those who don't know, I have an illness. I have dysautonomia, so sometimes it makes me like really dizzy, and I can't really do much of anything because I feel like I'm either gonna pass out or the dizziness is gonna like make me sick. So I end up just laying in bed and reading, and sometimes I can watch things, sometimes I can't, sometimes like it's just too disorientating for me. So I usually end up reading, and when I can't read because I'm too dizzy to read, I listen to the audiobooks. So that was how February went for me. It was kind of awkward because I'm behind on my schoolwork, I'm behind on my work, and I'm behind on booktube. But I finally feel somewhat better, so that's a positive. I have my good days, I have my bad days. So let's start with the books I finished for my February TBR. So, Daughter of the Pirate King. Okay, I really wanted to read this book because it was a fantasy romance, and I love fantasy romance. Fantasy romance is like my sweet spot of reading, and it delivered. It was fantasy romance. It wasn't a side piece romance. It was really good. It was really fast. It was a book you probably can read in like 1 or 2 days if you really wanted to. It was a very fast read. It's about this girl. She is the daughter of the Pirate King, and she goes undercover as like a prisoner on a rival ship to find this item to solve a map, to find this piece of a map or an item to add to a map, to find like Erin treasure. So this does have a magic system, but the magic system wasn't like the main premise of the book. It is a fantasy, but I don't feel like it was very fantasy-like. It did do with nautical and pirates and mermaids and water, so if you like those themes, you'll probably really enjoy it. It is definitely like an enemies to lovers type thing, and I really enjoyed it. I would totally read the second book. I think it's The Daughter of the Siren Queen is the second book. It was really good, such a fast read, easy to read, I enjoyed it. It was 4.25 stars. I actually ended up going out and buying it in hardback, these hollow vows. So this book is totally, as they describe it, ACOTAR. They also said it's ACOTAR meets The Cruel Prince, but I've never actually read The Cruel Prince, so after reading this, I really want to read The Cruel Prince. But this totally reminds me of ACOTAR. If you love ACOTAR, if you love From Bread and Ash, you will like this. This is better written than both of those, but the story weaving isn't on the level of story weaving of Sarah J. Maas, and you guys know I don't like From Blood and Ash. I really should have just DNF'd it, but I tried to keep pushing through because the hype was so high on that book, but that book was so bad. I don't understand why so many people love it. But these Hollow Vows definitely falls under that type of book. I need to find a word for these Hollow Vows, ACOTAR, From Blood and Ash type book, because this is like a reoccurring theme I feel like I've been reading. The book is fun to read. It's a good book. I give it 5 stars. Is it a 5-star book on the level of like a Cassandra Clare book? No. Is it a 5-star book on the level of like a Taylor Jenkins Reid's novel? No. But it was still a good and fun read. Like, I really enjoyed reading this book. I had no qualms with like having fun reading it. It was just like a fun ride. So I think that's the best way I can explain it. It's a good book, it's a fun ride, but I'd never put it on a level of like one of my faves. I did put it as one of my fun books to read when I don't feel good because it did captivate me, but the plot really was not there. The love story is problematic, to say the least, and I don't really love any of the characters, but it was just so fun. It's kind of like reality TV, but for Fae World. Yes, I think that's exactly how I shall describe this. This genre of books is like reality TV. It's just so dramatic. The plot isn't always fully there or communicated well, and it's just a lot of people who just want to find love. Yeah, the best way I can describe this, it's reality TV for Fate World. That's exactly how I'm gonna describe it. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, it doesn't have traditional writing structure. Like, there's not like a hardcore plot, a hardcore resolution, a hardcore character development evolution happening. There's like no arc. So it's hard for me to describe a book that's really undescribably interesting. So that's how I'm gonna describe it. Long story short, These Hollow Vows is about Bree. Bree does not like fairies. She hates them because her mom ran off with a fairy and pretty much left her and her sister with their uncle, and then when their uncle died, she got left with their evil step aunt and cousins. It's like a Cinderella story. There's even a whole issue, a ball at midnight type situation thing happening. And pretty much Bree's like, yeah, I hate fairies. Until her sister is sold actually, by her evil aunt to the most evil fairy in all of Fatum. And Bree's like, okay, now I have to go to Fairy World, and they're hosting this ball, so I'm gonna go under the guise of trying to win the prince's heart during this ball so that I can save my sister. And that's how this book is. It's interesting. It has selection vibes a bit. This book has selection vibes, Akatar vibes, From Blood and Ash vibes, apparently Cruel Prince vibes as well, but I have not read The Cruel Prince, so I cannot confirm nor deny that, but it was a fun, wild ride, and it kept me entertained. It definitely gave me flashbacks of when I was sick, way back when, this past summer, and I read Akatar, even though I did not like it that much. It just had me laughing. It was just an interesting conundrum to read. And I feel the exact same way about this one. The next book I read in February was The Coldest Touch by Isabel Sterling. This was also on my February TBR, and I pretty much DNF'd this book at 197, and there's about, I think, 400 pages, 350-ish pages. I don't like contemporary writing that much, and this was a deep side piece romance, and I just could not. Like, I was like, it's a sapphic romance, and I'm like, oh, yes, a sapphic. But I could not get into it because the romance was so back and forth, miscommunicative, and it was just starting to annoy me, as well as it was more tell than show. And I honestly feel like the contemporary part just like ripped me out of the book so many times, it just became annoying. So this is for the fans of Rachel Mead and Stephenie Meyer. It's totally just like that, but I forgot that I don't really care for Rachel Mead's contemporary form of writing. I cared more for her like supernatural form of writing, so this is just not it for me. It is super contemporary, so if you like contemporary writing, you'll love this. So this is about Elsie and Claire. Elsie is just a normal girl, and until one day she predicts her brother's death, and she's living with the repercussions in this book. So she predicts his death, and she's not able to save him, so she's depressed, she's going through mourning. I think if you've ever lost a sibling, you will probably relate really well to this book. I found it was very delicately handled, for at least the part that I read. And I found it interesting. And Claire is this vampire who is sent to pretty much scope out Elsie and be like, hey, these are your powers, these are how you control your powers, and now I need to take you to this Veil people because they need your help protecting the Veil or serving the Veil or doing something with the Veil. I never got that deep into it, or do I fully remember this because this is like one of the first books I read in February, but it was interesting. Less contemporary, I probably would have stuck with it, but it was just too contemporary for me. Too contemporary for me. If I didn't DNF The Cold Touch, I probably would have given it about 3 stars. Depending on the ending might have bumped it up to 4, but it was definitely like a 3 types read for me. But I'm not into contemporary, so that is highly biased. And out of the 6 books I had on my February TBR, I read those 3, and then the other books that were left behind were The 6 Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lem. I totally let this expire on my Kindle loan on accident from my library. I was just reading a bunch of books at the same time, and I couldn't finish them all at the same time, so I had to let this one expire, unfortunately. as well as Awakens by Elsie Kova. I still have this as a Kindle Unlimited book to read, but every time I see this cover, I just get really turned off and I don't want to read this. So I still have not read this, even though I really want to. And last but not least, The Body Keeps. So I really wanted to read this book. It was recommended by a TikTok therapist or psychologist, I don't really know. But she did give warnings when recommending this book, not to read it when you're sad, feeling down, right before you go to bed. And since I was so sick last month, I did not read this book. Plus, it's hard to read something technical and analytical when you don't feel well. I'd rather just save my energy and rest more and just go on a easy journey story, like all the other books I read this month. But I do look forward to reading The Body Keeps Score, because it's about how the body remembers trauma and how it deals with it, and I feel like that's super interesting. I'm really into mental health and self-care, so I really want to read this book, but I do give you trigger warnings. This is a nonfiction book, and it does deal with like deeper mind stuff that if you don't want to dredge up, probably best not to read this. So my mood read self pretty much mood read for the rest of the month after this. I read the first book that came in my Illumicrate box, This One Kingdom by Tara Mafi. It was great. It was one of my first 5-star reads of the month of 2022, so I was very happy. My only disappointment is that the foiling is coming off on my Illumicrate special edition book, and I'm very mad and disappointed about this. The foiling is literally coming off on the sides, right here, on the lettering, on the back. Anywhere your hand will touch, the foiling's coming off. I've only had this book for like less than a month, and it's already like disintegrating. So angry. So I went to Barnes & Noble and I picked up the regular edition of it, because I know I'm going to want to reread this book when the second book comes out, because this was a very good book. I'm not going to talk much about this book except for the fact that I gave it 5 stars, because I did an entire book talk on this. Check it out on my channel. By the way, this was my first Tara Mafi book. Inspired my next read, Shatter Me. Shatter Me was one of the hardest books to get. I don't know why. My library had a 4-month wait. I went to 3 different Barnes & Nobles, sold out, and I'm just like, it's not just me. A lot of my friends have been trying to get Shatter Me to talk about, since more Tara Mafi books are coming out recently, and I think a book talk has made it resurface a lot as like a really good book for a lot of people to read, so it's been selling out in a lot of places, and I'm just irritated. My friends are irritated. I luckily was able to finally acquire it from the library. So happy. 3 months later, and I finally get to read this book. Those who know the struggle I went through getting this book understands it. I was able to also read it through ebook, through audiobook as well, through the library, so I love that. I gave this book a 4.5 stars. It was a really good read. It was super fun. It definitely was an establishment book, I feel, and I really enjoyed it. Shatter Me was one of the books I wanted to read 9 years ago, before I got into that horrible reading slump. And now, almost 10 years later, pretty much a decade later, I have finally read this book that I've been wanting to read for so long. Does it live up to the hype? I'm not sure yet, because I haven't read the second or third or the other books in the series. And yes, I did indeed order the Shatter Me exclusive edition from Fairy Loot, because that's the reason I wanted to read the books so soon now, because I was like, oh my gosh, these books are so popular. They're gonna sell out. I have to read it to know if I'm gonna buy it as an exclusive copy. And tell me how I woke up at 5 a.m. to place my order with Fairy Loot, because I'm on Pacific Standard Time. Dedication. And it didn't sell out. It's still in the Fairy Trove. So if you want it, you can probably still get it. I really want to get it. I like to get books that I really enjoy in the exclusive copy, because I am a naked hardback girl, and they just rub my soul in the right direction, and it makes me happy. And then the next book I read in February was Ugly Love. I know my Colleen Hoover fans, they're all just like cheering in the background. I read this because I was really scared I was going to become spoiled for Colleen Hoover's novels, because everyone talks about them. I don't care for contemporary romance. I'm trying to get into it. I'm working my way through some of the really good ones to know if I really want to dedicate my time to a genre that I know I don't particularly care for. I'm a fantasy romance girl. I know what I like, but I feel like contemporary romance is good as a break between fantasy. It's kind of like clearing the palette so that you can truly appreciate more fantasy romance later down in the line. I don't know, this is just theories from a fantasy romance girl. Anyway, Ugly Love was good. I enjoyed it. I don't care for smut, but I did enjoy the backstory of this book. I am very much someone who enjoys like a compelling story that makes me want to know more. I am not someone who's like, oh, let me just read it for like the ambiance or the vibes. That's not me. I know a lot of people read for ambiance and vibes. No, I need the story to take me to the world, compel me through it, captivate me, send me on this wild goose chase in my mind. And I feel like this did it. I really enjoyed the plot twist. I really enjoyed the ability to see through the different characters' minds. But I did not like the contemporary part of it. This is no surprise. I don't like contemporary writing. I liked the backstory more than I liked the main story. So this is about Miles and Tate. Miles is a pilot. Tate is a nurse studying to become a higher level nurse. And there are boy next door. Girl falls in love with boy next door / enemies to lovers / friends with benefits. And it's just a whole rocky road story. And the cover actually corresponds with the story. I'm not going to talk too much about it except to say that I gave it 4.5 stars. Because I actually have a book talk about this coming out quite soon. So if you want to hear more about this book, just check out my book talk. The Coldest Touch, I actually did a whole book talk on The Coldest Touch because I review all the books that come in my book boxes. So since this was a Fairy Loot edition book, I did review it. There's a whole book talk about it along with This Woven Kingdom. Since this was a Lumiere book box, I also did a whole book talk on this one as well. This one was just so good and captivating. The next two books I read in February was The Winner's Crime and The Winner's Kiss. So The Winner's Crime is the second and third book of the Marie Rutkoski's The Winner's Curse trilogy. I really like these books. I gave it about a 4.5, 4.7 stars. I think I gave the first book way back when probably 4 stars. I read all of these in addition with the audiobook because at this point of my reading life, I was so dizzy I could not read. So I was able to just listen to the books on audio and it saved me a lot of boredom and dizziness. I really enjoyed the books. I had a fun time reading them. I can't say that I feel like I'm on the cusp of this becoming a comfort read or a favorite, but it's just not there yet. It needs a little bit more oomph. I wanted to get the Lumiere special edition of The Winner's Curse exclusive book box, but I'm still on the fence about it. I don't know if I'm going to buy it just yet. They still have it if you guys want it in the Lumiere shop, but I just don't know if it's so close to becoming a favorite, but I just feel like it needs something more, something else. So because of that, I don't think I'm going to be pursuing it because it's just too on the cusp. But it was a really good book, almost a 5-star read for me. It was really good. I highly suggest reading it if you want to. The Winner's Curse is about this girl. She buys this guy as a slave, and her people have pretty much colonized his world. And he pretty much is undercover, and he's pretty much undercover living with her. And she has to debate between marrying or going to war. She is the general's daughter, so it's pretty crazy for her. I really enjoyed it. I just don't know if it's something I would buy and reread over and over again. I had a fun time. I just didn't have like outlying thoughts about it. So that's another reason I'm not sure if I want it. The next book I read was The Year of the Reaper. This was a Fairy Loot book. I gave it 3.7 stars. It was a good book. It was based on the plague, and I think it's in Spain is the background. Medieval Spain. It was very interesting to read. I did not expect it. It's totally a side piece romance. Complete side piece romance. And nothing about it really captivated me as far as cover goes, but it was a good read. It was different. I didn't expect it. The plot twist was definitely big at the end, but I just needed more from the story overall. I still liked it. It's about this guy, he's the main character. He pretty much survived the plague and now he can see ghosts, which was never touched on. Plague and now he can see ghosts, which was never touched on in the book. Like, we never find out why he can see ghosts, which really bothers me. And I'm not sure if that's a spoiler. If it's a spoiler, I'm just gonna put spoiler right before this. Sorry. And now he has to go back to his home, face what's left behind from the ruins of the plague, and rebuild his life, while also finding out when he gets home, the queen's living in his home, and she has people after her. She has assassins coming after her son, and after everyone who survived her trip to the palace, aka his home. So he's here, just like, okay, now I have to protect the queen. And this is his journey. I also have a book talk about this since this was from a Fairy Loot book box. The next book I read in February was actually Caraval by Stephanie Garber. Everybody has told me to read this book. Book Talk, BookTube, Bookstagram, everyone loves this book. I gave it 4 stars. It was good, I enjoyed it, I listened to part of it on audio and then read the rest. Caraval was pretty much what I expected Night Circus to be, but way better. So if you guys don't know, Night for Circus was one of my worst books of 2021. You can check that out, but this is what I would expect Night Circus to be. If you like Circus, Circus de Soleil, any type of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory imagery and adventure, I think you'll like Caraval. It was a good treat. I'm definitely reading the next book. The ending was superb, and I gave it a 4 stars. It was a really good book. I truly enjoyed it, and I look forward to reading the next book. I think it's Legendary, and then it's Finale, or it's Finale, then it's Legendary. And the last book is actually Atomic Habits. So I was actually supposed to finish this for my January TBR, and I even put it during my January wrap-up as done, but in reality, I never finished it, so this is me updating y'all. But I love this book. This book was so good. I tabbed it so many times. There's so much work that I need to do in this book, so I ended up reading it slower than I wanted to, and then I was like, you know what, just read it through and then do the work later. So if you're trying to change a bad habit or trying to make a new habit be part of your new life routine or your new identity or whatever the case may be, read Atomic Habit. It's very practical, it's very logical, and it's pretty easy to implement in your life. You just have to do the work to get it done. This was a nonfiction book. I really like it. It's by James Clear. It is a 5-star book for me. A lot of people love Atomic Habit. I suggest everyone to read it. I think it's a great way to evolve with your life and change some of your habits that may have served you in the past but no longer do. And I think a lot of people enjoy it. It's very easy to read as well. And those are all 10 of my books I read in February. It was a good month. Aside the fact that I was so dizzy and weak, it was a really good reading month. I had so many book adventures. I was enthralled, in love, just flying across the universe, and it was decadent. I look forward to my month of March reading. Right now I'm actually currently reading A Marvellous Light, and so far it's about to start picking up. I'm really excited to finish it. I hope that I get to finish it soon because I feel like it's starting off really slow, so that's kind of deterring me from wanting to continue with it. But it has so much promise and potential, and it's just so different that I just like it. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Remember, I'm here every Friday. And don't forget to subscribe, and happy reading, y'all. I hope your month of March is filled with lovely, enthralling reads. Bye, guys.